what's up, guys? Welcome in. Welcome back to another great episode of Trainer Talk Tuesday. Now, today we're going to talk to you about the best ways that you can track your results and how often you should be doing them, guys. So let's go ahead and jump in, give you this good information, and hopefully this can better help you along your journey to better health.
Yes, guys. So when you're getting into a new fitness or health routine, it's very important to track your results. Doing this is really going to help keep you motivated, and it's going to help keep you accountable throughout your journey. And I think that this is a huge mistake that a lot of people make if they're not working with a professional. They don't tend to do these things, and then when you feel like you aren't getting results, you may be, but if you have no form of tracking, then it's really hard to navigate through that, and oftentimes people get overwhelmed, they might quit, they get depressed. So it's really beneficial. I would say it's necessary if you want to be successful in this. So the first one is you should be keeping a food and workout journal. Okay, so a food journal is writing down what you're eating, the times that you're eating it. Some people, if necessary, you might even write down what you were feeling like when you were eating those items, so we can try to tie things back into emotional eating or social eating, or overeating because of whatever situation is going on, to try to bring back memories. People do that too. So it's very important to kind of have these things on paper. So if you have a good week, we can look back and say, okay, what you were eating looks nice. This is working for us. Let's stick with it. And if you have a few weeks where things just don't seem to be getting you where you want to be, then we can maybe kind of tweak it a little bit and make some changes. Same thing with your workout journal. You should be writing down your exercises, your program designs, what type of equipment you're using, how much weight you lifted, how many reps you did for that weight, did you do it to muscle failure or not, all of these different things, right? What was your rest periods? These are all beneficial things to write down. And with your workouts, you can really gauge, has your strength level increased over a certain period of time? Are you lifting more weight now with this particular movement than you did when you first started? And those are really great ways to gauge success. These things, along with other non-weight victories, okay? And you should be tracking these elements every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way you can think of it too, when it comes to your food and workout journals, just having that thing visually down, something where you can actually look back and see what you did here. This also could be a way to help you progress or keep from regressing. Saying that, let's say if you do, you're tweaking, you're trying new things out, something we talk about, you're trying new foods out, and so on and so on, and maybe you find something that really works for you, where you make the best progress throughout that week, and now you want to go back and see exactly what it is that you did, and now you don't have to kind of fumble through your own mind and think of what you did. You already have it written down analytically there. You can go back, revert back to it. And the same thing with the workouts. When did you get the strongest? How were you training? How much weight were you lifting around this time? You can always gauge your progression or regression based off of what you have been doing. So definitely getting that thing down on paper somewhere where you can look back and see exactly what you did is only going to help you only going to help you be more successful. And then it's also going to give you a great story to tell. Once you meet that ultimate goal, you can revert back to everything you did up to that point and how you ultimately met your goals. And you can share that information and that story to help inspire and motivate the next one.
And before we move on, I think the most important thing that Nate mentioned was writing it down. I have a lot of people that are like, well, I took a mental note of it. Guys, it's not going to have the same effect. You may have a great memory, that may be true, but there's just no possible way that you're going to remember all this stuff. You're not going to remember the portion sizes of your food. You're not going to remember every single weight that you lifted and how many reps. It's just impossible, guys. Write it down. You think you know, but you do not. You're not going to be able to keep up with it. Just write it down. You are 2 times more likely to succeed just by writing it down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no matter how smart we are, how much we know, you're always evolving. There's always new information there to be found. So you're going to always be making tweaks to how much food you're eating in a particular portion setting, how much weight or how much time you're working out. So definitely want to get it written down. I know there are those, forgot what they call those people that can basically photographic memory. So I know you guys exist out there, but still, help you be more successful, help you have something to revert back to, and like I mentioned, to share with someone else, you have all that information at hand. But let's go ahead and move down to number 2 here.
All right, guys, number 2 is if you have the capabilities, you should track your body fat percentage. Now, most people aren't going to have access to like the most precise form of body fat percentage calculations, but I mean, if you have calipers, those are great for people, especially if they don't have a lot of fat on their body. But the bioimpedance, so they have scales, they have like handheld ones. These are not like the most accurate by any means, but they're easy to come by. So we're gonna kind of more so reference those. Guys, even though they might not give the most accurate reading for your body fat percentage, it will be consistent. So if you gain, it will show that. If you lose, it will show that. Now it might show you a little bit higher, or mostly higher, or lower than what you may actually be, but it is pretty accurate, and the more fat that you have on your body, the more accurate that it seems to be. So just keep that in mind. But I know you guys have seen this, or you've at least heard of the technology, like if you can get on a scale, it will show you your weight, but a lot of the scales nowadays will also send electrical impulses through your feet, and it will give you your body fat percentage, it will give you your hydration levels, your muscle mass percentage. Okay, so your body fat percentage is a great, very effective form of tracking. Okay, this is going to be one of the most important, if not the most important. So really having some way of doing that is going to be awesome, because like I said, it's going to be pretty accurate as far as, you know, showing if you are losing or gaining in that area. I would suggest doing this once a month. Some people might suggest doing more. I definitely wouldn't do over a month. I would say, you know, a month max, you know, maybe two weeks to a month, depending on what your goals are. You can track that, but don't go over a month to track your body fat percentage, because we don't want it to get way out of control. And, you know, all these months go by that we could have looked back at your food journal or your workout journal and made tweaks. So we don't want too many weeks to go by before making the necessary changes.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Want to be consistent with it, and losing body fat is going to be a very slow process as well. So about once a month, twice every 2 weeks, based off your goal and how much you're training, you can go ahead and check in with it. But it's going to be critical also, because that is going to be the number one element when it comes to losing weight. Is you want to have as little body fat in the body as possible. Now, I'm not saying to get too low where it's not healthy, but for the general person out there that is working out, is trying to get better, to rid themselves of being susceptible to certain diseases that we talk about all the time when it comes to not taking care of the body, it's always going to go back to how much fat you're losing within the body. Because sometimes you're not going to see it in the number on the scale, but you will be able to see it in the what's the word I'm looking for here again? Tone. Your tone, like your overall, you know, how firm you are, how much more slender you're getting cut, so on and so on. So basically just those inches, I guess the best way to say it there, how many inches you're losing, which is going to go back to the body fat that you have. So once a month is definitely ideal. Definitely be consistent with that number and pay more attention to that than you are your overall weight loss, the number on the scale. Because at a certain point, that scale is not going to tell you exactly what you know to be true as far as how much you weigh, because it's not going to always account for the muscle mass that you may have. So a lot of people may not like the number, but everything else about how they are at that point is perfect. But you're a little heavier than you thought you would be at that size, just because you're more solid, you have more muscle than you did before, and you took away a majority of the fat in the body.
All right, guys, and this kind of goes in with number 3, which is getting your measurements, which Nate kind of mentioned there. I always do at least 3 points of measurements, which is the waist, the chest, and the glutes. I will say, typically, professionals do not measure your natural waist. Some may, they might do both. I know for me, I just do over the belly button. The reason that I do measurements over the belly button is because that's where most people hold their fat, okay? That's where we get that, beer belly, but also your belly button's not going to move. If you have a lot of excess fat, things are gonna shift, they're gonna move, it's gonna look and feel different as you start to get results, but your belly button is always going to be a point of reference that is always going to stay where it is. So that's just an accurate way to get measurements for yourself. You can do measurements in other places. Some people I know do like biceps or they do thighs. That's really up to you. My only suggestion is to be consistent. Okay, so if your husband's taking your measurements and he's taking them in certain places, do them in the exact same places and have the same person take your measurements every single time. If you start to throw in other variables like, switching where you're, doing it at, or switching the person who's actually taking the measurements, and you're really going to throw off the results big time, because people, they have a certain way of doing things, and it's going to completely stray off the accuracy of what you're trying to do. So just make sure that you're consistent with this. And same thing I would say about like once a month you should get measurements, and in that month time, our bodies fluctuate a lot, but in a month's time, you should see measurements go down. And depending on how much you lose, that may differ, but I would say, if you're losing half an inch or more, that's pretty substantial, guys. That's really, huge success in a month period.
I know. So really not much to add there. I'm gonna move right down to number 4 here, because we pretty much are talking about ways to track, right? So we talked about the body fat already. We just mentioned your measurements. All of these things are important, and you should be consistent with those. Another way is something that you can do pretty much as often is before and after photos. And maybe even be particular with those before and after photos. And I see a lot of people get a particular outfit that they put on at that very first photo, and they put that same outfit on throughout that process until they get to that ultimate goal, because that is a really, really good way as well to be able to see the work you've done, to see about how much you have progressed since that initial start. So being able to see it visually, because again, you may not feel the best about what the body fat percentage is saying. You may not feel the best about what your measurements are saying. But if you can see what you look like in this particular outfit and how that outfit is fitting you now, and see some changes there or feel some success there, that is ultimately going to give you another win, more motivation and inspiration to continue to push forward. And then it's just another good way, especially in today's age when we all got cell phones and cameras and so on, that you can continuously track yourself to see how's your body changing over this time frame.
And I know a lot of people, when we talk about this, they're like, oh, I don't want to get my picture taken right now. Like, I don't like the way that I look. You don't have to show it to anybody if you don't want to. But trust us when we say, when you get to where you want to be, you're going to want those before photos. And as Nate mentioned, try to wear the same outfit every time. It's going to give you more of that emphasis on the changes that you have on your body, and just the overall look. And the more skin, the better, I'll say with this. So the less amount of clothing that you're comfortable wearing, the better it's going to be. If you're not comfortable wearing just like shorts and a sports bra, or guys just like shorts, then you need to make sure that you're wearing form-fitting clothing. If you're wearing a real loose t-shirt, which I know a lot of people like to do in their before photos, you're not going to be able to see your figure as you lose weight and you wear that same clothing. So please, whatever you're wearing, make sure that it is form-fitting or that it's showing a lot of skin so that you can actually see the changes.
Yeah, really good point. I'm glad you clarified that. And the last one here, getting into it, is going to be ultimately, you already know, a scale, guys. Actually getting on that scale here from time to time and really checking to see how much weight you're losing overall, especially if that is going to be something of importance to you. However, I guess I would say that in the beginning of your necessary journey, especially if you are losing an excess amount of weight. That scale is going to be critical because you do want to be at a certain weight at least, so that way you're not too far into that danger zone as you continue to lose that weight, build muscle, burn fat throughout the body. And that's is mostly recommended about 1 time a week, especially early on within that process. You want to be as consistent with that weight check is going to be very important. Now, another element here, and I guess once I say this, I don't know if you're going to have much more to add, but when it comes to checking your weight in particular with the scale, guys, you want to do it very consistently, just like we talked about everything else. So what I mean is, you want to make sure you hit your body at the same point each and every time you step on. So if you're getting up in the morning, the first thing you should be doing is trying to check your weight on that scale, or whenever you can get to the scale, and make that the same time each and every time. You want to make sure you're consuming the same amount of fluids or food before you get on that scale at each time, so that your weight is very consistent and you know exactly what you're looking at. If you go in there and you just had a big meal right before you hop on that scale, well, now that number is going to be skewed. Same thing if you go ahead and consume a lot of fluids before you get on and you didn't do it a time or two before, that number is going to be skewed. So you want to be very, very consistent here, same time each and every time you do it, and make sure that you're not doing something you didn't do the first time. And I would just say you should try to get on that scale before you even consume any large meals or any numbers of fluids for the day.
That's it, guys. I mean, I know maybe you might not have access to a scale, but if you don't, buy one. Okay, they're not that, it's not like a luxury purchase. They don't cost that much. Just buy a scale. It doesn't have to be like the nicest scale in the world. Just buy an accurate reading scale, because the reality is there's so many things that are going to change your weight. And the reason that we recommend this once a week is because people can, sometimes, you may feel like this, become a little obsessive about the scale. And they like to weigh every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and there's so many fluctuations that can make that reading go up and down, up and down, up and down, all throughout the day. I mean, if I took my reading all throughout the day, I would be up 7 pounds, down, it would be literally all over the place. And we're talking pretty drastic numbers, not just like 1 pound. So hydration levels, obviously food intake, just buy a scale, guys, and do it first thing in the morning after you use the restroom. That's it. I mean, that is going to be the most accurate reading, same time in the morning, once a week, same amount of clothing on. If you wear shoes every time, the same shoes every time. If you don't wear shoes, then always keep them off, because all that stuff matters. So just keep that in mind, guys. Be as accurate as you possibly can. Try to keep things consistent. And overall, don't obsess over the scale. Does it matter? Yes. Is it the full story? No. That's why we have all these other tracking devices or methods put in place for you to really maintain and stay consistent and hold yourself accountable to this and make this a lifelong goal. So honestly, I would suggest doing all of these, to be honest. And you might find that you prefer a couple over the others, but it's never gonna hurt. Having all these things, it doesn't take hardly any time. Most of them you're only doing once a month, right? Just do all of them, because as we mentioned, you might see results in some areas and not necessarily in others for a million of different factors, right? So let's make sure that we're just tracking all of them through all these different methods, so we can make sure that we are really getting the best possible and full picture of what's really going on.
All right, guys, so real quick run through, quick recap. Number 1, food and workout journals plus other non-weight victories every day, consistently. Number 2, body fat percentage, ideally once a month, consistently. Number 3, measurements, ideally 1 time a month, consistently. Number 4, snap those pics, see those photos, store them, revert back to them. Remember the same clothing and attire you wear, form, fitting. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's
same
what I definitely
background,
say.
everything.
So on and so on, consistently. And then number 5, the scale, guys. So pretty much, I know this was kind of, redundant for some of you out there. Maybe you already knew, but for the ones that didn't know, there you have it, the best ways to track results and how often you should do them. So thanks for sitting in again for another video with us, and we hope you're having a wonderful day. We hope you're really, really getting those results, and you're successful on your journey, and you're doing all that you can to continue to get to that ultimate point, guys. And with that being said, never give up.
Never lose hope.
And never settle. All right, see you next week, same time, same place. And until then,